Joining me now are Tony Covino and Mike Mostert from In Theory. We've chatted with the guys a few times before, and it's always nice to get a chance to catch up. How are you guys doing today?
Doing fantastic. How about yourself? How you doing today?
Doing good.
Doing wonderfully. It's a beautiful day. I get to sit around and talk about music. Everybody wins. So obviously, a lot of people coming across this conversation. It might be the first time. They might not have rushed on our earlier conversations. Each of you take a moment and talk a little bit about, in theory, and how the band got together, and then also, of course, how where the name came from. I'm sorry. There's one of you is echoing. I'm sorry. Sorry to here. Hang on a second. Joining me now are Tony Covino and Mike Mostert from In Theory. Great to see you guys today. Thanks for taking the time to chat with me.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time to get us on the show again. It's been a while.
It has been a while, so I'm glad we get to catch up. And I was thinking before we started, probably somebody checking this out, they might not have seen our earlier conversations. So I'll let you guys take a moment and explain how the band got together. But maybe first we'll see which one of you wants to field the question, which I've asked before. But for the sake of our audience, where does the name In Theory come from?
Well, you go ahead, Tony.
It was a name when we first started getting together on this project. We were just like tossing names around at, I believe, over dinner or something like that. And yeah, I mean, somebody, because when we rehearse, everyone's like, "Well, in theory, this should work," or blah blah blah, and then it just kind of stuck. So it's kind of the origins of where In Theory came from.
And Mike, how do you get to know Tony, and how does the band take shape?
Well, there's different excuse me. There's different incarnations of that. So Tony and I go way back when we were signed to EMI Records, way back when we had the hair metal days, and we were in a band called Big Mouth with two G's because everything was two G's or two X's or two Y's. You know how it is, and I think some of those bands are still around using maybe three X's or so.
Well, yeah, because there'll be like the one guy in the band that tours with a version with three G's, and then the other guy's like, "Well, I want to do it too," so he has four G's. So
Right,
yeah, it's
three G's and two B's or three
yeah,
B's. So,
yeah. Like there's like you can spell the name Rat several different ways. Let's each have our own touring version. But anyway, so you were sort of in a much different scene like that, and was it Big Mouth? Was you said the name of the band?
it was Big Mouth, and we had Steve Riley from LA Guns was our drummer, and we were signed to EMI back in the day. And then we just caught the tail end of when the music scene was a little bit different. The music industry was different. So everybody had their 3 or 5 year period, whether it was punk or disco or hair metal. And when we got signed was right towards the tail end of it, and we got signed and sort of died out just as quickly. And that's when grunge took over. So and then you fast forward. It was maybe like 6 years ago or 7 years ago. It's gone by so fast now. Where I was doing a record for my company called Go Go Tuners, and I wanted to, bring. It only made perfect sense to bring Tony back in the fold, and let's do something new. And so we did. We brought In Theory in on that record, and actually we brought in one old. Excuse me, one Big Mouth song that we've never released. So we did that as well. And from that, we got so much attention from In Theory. So Tony and I decided to keep rolling. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice today. So we decided to keep it rolling and moving forward just because of the great response we got from the record. So, but as we were moving forward, Tony and I were really deliberate on how we wanted the band to sound. Our lives have changed. We have a lot more life experiences, a lot more influences have creeped in the last, 15, 20 years. And we didn't want to go back to the old well of what we were. So we were just extremely deliberate on creating this new sound that what you're hearing now, what In Theory is or what in theory has become.
Well, it's. I think I always like sort of starting with influences, musically, and sort of where you guys found common ground. I'll start with you, Tony. Sort of what for you musically, before you even started thinking like, hey, this might be fun for me to do. What did you like to listen to? What did you grow up listening to?
Well, I mean, really, I listen to a lot of different things, but obviously, in the beginning, bands like Black Sabbath, Led Zeppelin, Ronnie James Dio. I'm a fan of good singers. So, whoever vocally inspired me, I used to listen to that, and then that can even be the realm of, Lady Gaga to Michael Jackson. But I'm a fan of rock. I mean, I'm really a fan of metal, hard rock, and, the male vocal of, there's some elite singers, Glenn Hughes and people like
Sure.
that.
Yeah, and when
So
you're talking about guys like Glenn Hughes and Ronnie James Dio, you're talking about people who had those really high range, ear piercing, but in the good way, vocals. And you always hear about how Dio, like he never warmed up before a show. It was just like he just went out and did it. And I saw Glenn not that long ago. He was really playing bass and singing in the Dead Daisies for a little while there, and
right.
people obviously you are aware of his voice, but you kind of forget that he's a great bassist too. So you're checking the boxes of some just some top-notch singers, and I think it's important to realize that I can only that you realize that it's not that you can only learn from rock singers, but you're obviously able to take away from some of the other greats. You mentioned Michael Jackson, you mentioned Lady Gaga. So for Mike, is it similar to you where, you had a little bit of everything sort of listening to growing up?
Oh yeah, I mean, growing up and still, I mean, I had like say, three major influences. Some of it is my parents, some of it is my aunt, and probably my biggest influence when I was a teenager is, my brother, who was he was a bassist, and he was 3 years older. And I've explained this story where, when you're 12 years old, they're 15 years old. They're quite an influence, and he used to bring, the Black Sabbath, the Pink Floyd, the Led Zeppelin records, Angel records, Kiss records, you name it. And I was exposed to the rock element from him. But now that, as time has gone by, then now I've gotten to appreciate the music that my parents had, surrounded me with, and my family, where I think, their record collection, they had, remember like the old, like coffin, record players. I'm not sure if you remember those.
Oh, yeah.
They were large, but you could fit something like, there's like 5,000 LPs in there. And, and they still have something, I helped take care of them. And I'm just blown away by their record and their CD collection. And then when I'm listening to the records with them, I'm reminded of, when I was a child, and I didn't realize how much blues and actually like rock stuff they listened to. And my aunt was the same way, who, she recently passed last year, and we used to communicate a lot with music. So it was always kind of cute. She would send me, do you know who Jeff Beck is? She would send me Jeff Beck. Do you know who Eric Clapton is? Do you know who Les Paul is? So we would trade, the CDs and stuff. And she had like these recordings that I don't know where she got it, but like these outtakes from, from Chet Atkins, Jeff Beck. I mean, all these, it's just amazing. Now when I'll put it on, I'm like, oh my God, and but that's always been around since I was a little kid.
Yeah, no, it's a great point, because like your parents' music collection in a lot of cases is sort of your first foray into actually discovering music and listening to it and everything. And for me, my dad had this huge record collection. So he had all the Beatles records, all the Doors records, and the Stones up to a point. He had a very well curated record collection of about 10 years that stopped cold in 1974 when he got married. So that's when it ended. But I was able to get through a lot of great stuff. And, you know, look, for our younger members of the audience, it saved me a lot of money because I would have had to save up and, you know, buy CDs or cassettes for every one of those. And instead I was just like, oh, I'm just going to listen to them. And, you know, the thing that they used to think was going to kill the record industry was home taping. But,
Right?
you know, got some great stuff. So for you, Tony, is it something similar like that? Did your parents have a lot of this stuff, or did you discover, you know, Dio and you know some of the singers you're talking about more organically?
Well, actually, I got hooked through. My first cousin is a semi-famous drummer, Joe Franco, and at family parties, he used to play out at the time. He was in the band The Good Rats back in the Long Island club scene when you play 7 nights a week, you know, in front of thousands of people every night. So he was always out touring and stuff and doing shows. And I always went to the family parties, and I always admired that he didn't have to go because nobody wanted to go, but he didn't have to go because he was out doing something cool. So he kind of
Right.
hooked me
Yeah.
on that. And then the other thing
He
is
had to work, you know, so he had a
yeah,
kid. So
yeah. As a kid, I was like, oh, I want to do that. And then, you know, and then my brother, my oldest brother, Joey, was actually signed. His band was in high school and they were signed to Atlantic Records. And he did that for a while. So I was influenced by him. So yeah, there was some family, but oddly enough, my parents really didn't play music in the house, which is strange because a lot of my family members and cousins are in the music business or musical, but my parents really didn't play music a lot.
Yeah, no, look, I think that some parents are kind of like that. I mean, my dad was definitely like that, but I've used the example on my show before that my mom basically had two 8-track tapes. It was Barry Manilow's greatest hits and John Denver's greatest hits. I didn't get much of my musical taste from my mom. Obviously, those guys are very talented in
Right.
what they did, but that was just never really my scene. So, you know, Mike, one of the bands that's come up sort of as things you guys listen to, I forget which one of you mentioned. It might have been Tony, but you mentioned the band Angel, which I think is one of those bands that probably could have been so much bigger in the 70s if they'd signed with any label other than Casablanca, who already had Kiss. And, you know, it was seen like, but you guys are doing some shows with Angel, right? So talk a little bit about that. And do you guys have a website or social media where people can find it? I thought I had that in my notes, but I'm not seeing it here. And that's probably on me.
It's inferioriginal.com, and it has all the info, has the tour dates. It also has a SoundCloud player. So if you want to experience In Theory as if you were listening to a record, you can't download it from there, but you can listen to, there's 9 songs, and you can experience the full spectrum of what In Theory is. You know, because it was important to Tony and I. We wanted to give the listener that experience of when we were kids and we were listening to a record and take them on a journey. So you think, you know, one song doesn't define a band. We have a statement to say, you know, so, and if they do like it, they can go to the next page and then there's 2 different CDs that they could buy, you know, as well.
Yeah, you know, I mean, it's a good point because as much as people like to download things and, you know, have them on their phone, I mean, a lot of people, they find music by going to YouTube, and then they're, you know, unless you have like the YouTube Premium, you can't really download it or you can't do anything with it. You just like watch it in a stream. So you're sort of talking about that in the same way. And speaking of YouTube, of course, you guys are In Theory Band on YouTube, I believe.
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. But let's circle back to the shows that I referenced. So in May and June, what is it? There's 3 shows with Angel, I guess.
No,
Columbus,
there's,
Indianapolis.
I think there's either 6 or 7 right now.
All right, so I'm getting bad information left and right, Mike. But,
right. Well, they keep getting, you know, the thing with Angel, they keep getting changed. So, but sure. I think there's a minimum of 6, 7 shows, and maybe a little bit more than that. But yeah, how that came about is funny. It's just a full circle thing. And Tony's a fan of Angel, and I am. But that's one of the influences I was telling you about my brother earlier. You know, he brought that, you know, Angel record, that blue record that you turn upside down, and it's still up, you know, upright. The logo's right, and
Right.
you turn it upside down. I think it was On Earth as It Is on Heaven is the record. And but he used to go see Angel a lot, and at like 11, 12 years old, he used to call me Punky. So for now, Punky to play with Punky, it's exciting. I think he'd be smiling. My brother was killed at 30 years old, so I think he'd be smiling. That we're playing with Angel is one, and I think the other thing that my brother always had he could stir a lot of stuff. He had a lot of energy. And when the shows got first announced, it was actually on his birthday.
Oh wow!
So we're to me, it's just like a full circle from when I first started playing rock at 11, 12 years old, and so I'm excited about that.
Yeah, no, that's got to be exciting, especially because of that connection that you're talking about with your brother. So let me ask you, Tony. So you have some dates coming up with Angel, who've been around for a while, and definitely have some name recognition. And I can't remember if it was a month ago, maybe a little bit longer, but I know I heard an In Theory song on Sirius XM on Eddie Trunk's show. And, I think that obviously, you always want to get as much play as you can, but, getting on Sirius, that must have been fun for at least, I don't know if you guys tuned in because you knew it was coming or it was more people told you. I heard about it after the fact. Because somebody called into Eddie's show and talked about it, and I was like, "Hey, I know those guys," and here we are. But so talk a little bit about when things like that happen. Getting your songs on the radio. You hear a lot of musicians who talk about sort of that first time that you actually get to hear your own music on the radio, Tony.
Yeah, it's definitely. I mean, actually, the Eddie Trunk show, I didn't hear it. I wasn't aware that. When he was going to play it, I was aware that he was going to play it.
Right.
But just the fact of knowing that it was played was definitely a trip. The same with Alice Cooper played us, and he spoke about us, and people like that. It's just it's almost like, for me, it's almost like not real. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, it's just like one thing they did us a favor, and now we're going to move on with our life. But it's definitely. To get to that point as a band, you have to be in a certain position. So,
yeah. Well, you also have to figure, Eddie and Alice has had, a syndicated talk show for years now. Obviously, maybe people like that do it as some kind of favor, but there's probably a lot of favors that they get asked to do. And, they hear a little bit of the track and they're like, I don't owe you that big a favor. So the fact that they played it is very cool. And look, I listen to Eddie Trunk most days, but, getting played by Alice Cooper, I'm not going to lie. That's even cooler. So I didn't realize that. That's
well,
fantastic.
not only played, but he talked about the band. So yeah. And what you got to remember too, listen, favors, but if people don't like your stuff, they're not going to play you. I don't care what kind of, and let's be honest, everyone's doing favors. I don't care what band you're in. Everyone's getting a favor from somebody, right?
Yeah, of course.
But just to have that position where, we're considered, and they heard it and they like it and they put us on and they talk about it. That's another level, which, I'm really excited, over the moon about.
Yeah. So, Mike, let's talk a little bit about that, about the way people are reacting to, the music. You guys have been around for a little while. Some of what you're hearing, we'll talk about the new song in a minute, getting, announced as support for Angel, getting the song played in a couple of high profile places. What is the feedback like these days compared to the last time we talked, which was a little while ago? That's for you, Mike.
Oh, that's for me. Well, it's completely different now. It's now. I think before we were more of a surprise. Now there's an expectation out of the band. That people have been listening to the tracks, and I think we've been on over 400 stations or something like that, and podcasts and TV. So now it's not a surprise. So it's an expectation now. If that makes sense.
No, that That makes perfect sense, yeah, because like the first time might be surprise, but then when you get it, it's very cool. So let's talk a little bit about the new song. There's a lyric video for it called "World's on Fire," and Tony, I'll start with you. Let's get your thoughts on the song and why you guys felt like this is a good song to kind of push out there, do a video for, and try and get people's attention.
Well, it fits the times, and state of the world right now. You know, it's not literally on fire, but there's a lot of things going on, and from all different directions. So, I mean, that's the
Well,
vibe of
the
this.
whole world isn't on fire, but you can see a lot of fires. You can definitely look around. There's literal fires, and then there's some fiery situations, I guess. But
Yeah. We didn't mean. I
you
didn't
see
mean
your
it
point.
literally on
Yeah,
fire. I meant it's just the state of everyone's
sure, yeah.
perception is there's a lot of things changing, and they're changing fast, and um, some are for the good, some aren't. So to a lot of people, they're confused. I don't know. So I just felt like the state of the song. That's what it represents, without representing anything good or bad. It's just a lot of change.
Yeah.
So
Right, just
I just
commenting on a state of change and a lot of things going on. Mike,
right.
talk a little bit about what this song means to you.
Yeah, I mean, I look at it. I think that's just one aspect of the song, but I think the big thing is a lot of big things with it. It's a combination of everything, right? So the opening guitar riff is what grabs you right away. The driving beat, you're banging your head. You're playing air guitar. You're banging your head before a vocal even comes in. Then Tony comes in with the distorted megaphone type of vocal that's sung in a staccato way instead of a legato, and that's pushing it. It's pushing before you even get to the chorus, and then the chorus is universal and the icing on the song. So I look at it, more from musical standpoint. Like if the music's not good and grabbing you from the first four bars, we never make it to the chorus.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. It's a microcosm of we all know people who recommend oh my god, you should binge this TV show, and then you watch one and you're like, what are they talking about? Oh, you're gonna give it to episode 7. I'm like, no, I don't have that in me. So yeah, it would also be a song. It's like no, 4 minutes in is what it really picks up. So I think it's important, like you're saying, Mike, to really grab them right away.
Yeah, I mean the opening riff grabs you, and then as soon as the band comes in, you're headbanging to the song, you're rocking it, and then like the chorus is a melodic chorus that Tony sings heavy, but it's also a universal theme. It's the icing on the top of what that song needs.
Right. No, that absolutely makes sense. So obviously, this song's out there. You guys have some shows. What are you looking at, Tony, in terms of you got shows into the summer, but what are the plans maybe for the rest of 2024? More songs ready to release. Hoping to do more touring. What's sort of the next couple things on the checklist for In Theory, Tony?
Everything. All those. Well, I mean, everything that you just mentioned. I mean, we can't just do one, right? So
Yeah.
we always have to release new music. We always have to book more shows. We always have to do social media. We have to record. So it's really everything. I mean, right now, mostly our focus is now. We have a great opportunity to play some shows with Angel. It's going to get us in front of a different crowd, and I think the two bands work great together. So that's kind of our focus, but in the background, we're still doing all these other things. So it's not one or the other. It's really everything, everything at once. It's just the way it is in today's music climate.
Right. And, as much as I would want to be playing the song right now, with this being going up on YouTube, even though I'm having you guys on and it's your song, and even you're like, yeah, go ahead and play it. I've found that despite that, you can still sometimes get flagged by YouTube for playing music. So our audio audience is going to get to hear a nice long chunk of it. And I hope that that's the nice thing about people on YouTube, though. Just you might even have recommended in a window, like right next to us. It might say, click on the In Theory video for Worlds on Fire.
Mm-hmm.
And just in general, I guess, What do you feel like so far? Mike, we're talking about some of the. Sorry, Mike. We're talking about some of the things that that are happening. Sort of expecting to get airplay, but still, appreciating getting a nod from somebody like Alice Cooper. What has there been a moment so far where you started to think like, oh, this is actually happening? It's starting to build. It's not just just me and my friend having fun, which look, there's something to be said for that. But was there something where it like kind of hit you like, this is going on? Sorry,
Tony
what
and
was
I
it?
don't have fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I'm that type of person. I'm always driving, always working towards something. So I always feel like, yeah, we're almost there. So, um, I've felt like that for the last 3 years. But obviously, to be really honest with you, yeah, there's a lot more things concrete as far as touring, putting out the new records. I think really what solidified it for us, or for me particularly, was around December when we made a change management wise and so forth. And we just put a whole new team together. So we have a social media team, we have a radio team, we have PR team, we have a booking team. So just like with any great team or organization, I wanted to build a strong team, and we were able to do that in a short period of time. But it took a long time to get to that short period of time where the window opened, where okay, now we have everybody lined up, including our new distribution on digital. So now we're distributed by the Orchard, and the Orchard is owned by Sony Music. So that was a big thing for us, having a full-time booker that works mainly for us. So, and then as we have Jody, and we also have Tim Binder on our radio team. We have a full-time social media team, PR team, and I think having the whole thing together really made this I call it solid business organization to get us to every goal that we need to get to right now.
Yeah, no, I mean that makes perfect sense because as much as you want to try and especially starting out, like, well, yeah, like we'll do this grassroots, we'll build it up ourselves. At a certain point, you just need the help. And yes, shout out to the great Jody Best, aptly named, who sets up a lot of interviews for me. I'm always excited when I hear on another show or see or hear music from somebody that I know Jody represents, because she is always tirelessly banging the drum for so many of her artists. And I think that I don't know. So what Mike's talking about, Tony, I'm sure that when you start having all these people doing things like just social media alone, I would assume that fairly quickly you start to notice the difference in terms of engagement, right, Tony?
Yeah. I mean, definitely. I mean, that's you hire people that do what they do, right? And you kind of like, it's like any business, you manage everyone, but you kind of let them do their thing, because that's why we got them in the first place, right? They could do things that we can on our own. So yeah, but the team is great. And yeah, it's like Mike said, it took us a long time to finally get probably the right team. And now because of that, now things are speeding up. But it took us a while to get to that point to figure all that out and then speed up. And I mean, everything we do is very deliberate. Like, this isn't just me and Micah jamming and we'll go do a show and hope people come. It's like, this is our profession. This is our job. We want to get better. We want to get a bigger crowd. So
Sure,
everything
yeah.
that we do is intentional. Yeah, we have fun, but it is a business, and we treat it as such. So, but we have the right people in place to help us out.
Yeah, and to the point that you guys are both making, obviously, it's this important idea of having the team. The two artists that we've mentioned in passing, Kiss had Bill O'Coin and Alice Cooper had Shep Gordon. There are very few of those people to ever walk the world, but definitely not anymore. So, yeah, you need like 8 people to do what a Shep Gordon did for Alice in the early 70s.
Yeah,
Uh,
definitely. Yeah.
well, it's always great to talk to you guys, and I always enjoy the music. Don't don't, as I said, don't take the fact that I'm not playing it as anything to do with what I think of it. It's, I just want the video to stay up so
You
people
can let
can find
Tony
it.
know. You can let Tony know. Tell him. You can be honest with Tony. Tell him.
Yeah, no. I mean, everything's great except the vocal. No, I'm kidding. I love everything.
I've heard that
from
before.
you guys. I like everything that I've heard. So, Tony, but remind everybody where they can find everything. Just the one-stop shopping for finding out more about In Theory.
Yeah, you can go to intheoryoriginal.com and you could find everything you want to know, where we're playing, what we're selling, what we're doing. All our music is on there. You can get to all our social medias and all the apps that you can ever imagine. You can go right through our site. So we're a one-stop shop.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Tony. Thank you, Mike. Great to chat with you guys, and I look forward to talking to you again sooner than this time. Hopefully, there's some more great music for us to share with my audience in the near future.
All right, thank you.
It's definitely coming in the near future. In fact, I think in about 2 weeks we're releasing "Promised Land." It's the single, and it's also a CD EP as well. So, and the and again on the digital platforms, it's just a single. But we just finished. I think we just got them in last week, right, Tony? The Promised Land CDs. Mm-hmm. In fact, we just sold a couple actually as we've been on the air talking to you. But that one actually have some older songs that are on the first record and some songs that they've never heard. So.
Mike, I thought that somewhere off in the distance, I heard the ka-ching of a cash register. Now I know what it was. You guys were selling some CDs. In theory original, see if you might be able to catch them with Angel or on their own in the near future. Thanks again, Tony and Mike. Love talking to you guys.
I appreciate it. Thanks very much.